Hello, boa noite. Munson here with the Portugal Club this evening and another of our open-hearted, open-minded discussions. I will have to do a little bit of an edit at the beginning there, or Antonio Barbosa will talk to us about understanding Islam. That was last that was last week's speaker, Dr. Alim, who was with us, and you can see that. Our first conversation actually was should foreigners fear Shaga? Our second last week was understanding Islam, and it was a great conversation with Dr. Alim. I had a great, fascinating and truly open-hearted, open-minded conversation with him. And this evening, prompted by an article that stuck in Antonio Barbosa's, we'll call him Tony from here on in, but it's stuck in his craw a little bit. And he let off a bit of steam on the Portugal Club timeline. And you can see that article for yourself, which is called Blatant Intellectual Arrogance. And in our preamble this evening, just having a little chat behind the scenes as we were getting ready, he was talking about populism, and that's the title of tonight's discussion: Portugal, populism, and progress. I do want to scratch the surface and find out what Portuguese values are, the things that people are seemingly fighting about and wanting to preserve and promote, and what part that will play in our onward progress and the future of Portugal. It's very important that we talk about that tonight, and I'll do my best to make sure we do. And Tony is here, and our earlier discussion about populism, it's a symptom. It's not the disease itself. So here to talk about what the disease might be and to say why he got so upset about an article he saw in Expresso, it's Antonio Barbosa. To you and me, Tony time, the man in the media. Let's bring him onto the screen. Hey, Tony, good evening to you.
Hey there.
Yeah, that must have been a bit of I'm sorry if I caused you any alarm and you thought you had to talk about understanding Islam this evening, but no, definitely. I'm sure you could turn your hand to that to some degree. But tonight, Portugal, populism and progress. People can see the article you're referring to, or certainly your response to it. What was it that upset you so much to get us started this evening?
Well, Carl, first, thank you for the invitation. What I find, we're going to find very interesting, fascinating about this conversation is that we're really talking about our identity and not ideology. Okay. Mm-hmm. And populism, as you mentioned, didn't appear out of nowhere. It's a response to people feeling forgotten. That's kind of where I wrote this article. Actually, it was based upon Expresso, and it was just a comment that I made. And I said, hey, you know what? Let me share it with Carl. And, as someone who's lived and worked in Portugal for over 2 decades, 25 years now, mm-hmm. Helped hundreds of families make this country home. I see 2 Portugals right now. One that's proud. We talk about your values, right? One mm-hmm. that's proud, generous, and deeply human. And another that's just tired, disillusioned,
and
quietly frustrated, right? And I think our challenge, and that's what, so I'm gonna love this conversation because it is, it's interesting when you put together people's thoughts, and that's what it is, talking about it. I think that definitely helps. And I think our challenge is not to label, one side as ignorant or extremist, but to ask
why. How did we get here?
Right? How do we get
here? Yeah.
That frustration exists, and what values we've drifted away from. Like I said, I've been here over 2 decades, and because for me, the Portugal I fell in love with, the real Portugal, the Portugal I know, mm-hmm. It's built on the people, the warmth. I always say the sunshine, the warmth of the sunshine, and the Portuguese people welcome you. Okay. And it was built on that warmth, that humility, and resilience. Yeah. And those are the values still worth preserving, Carl. So,
yeah. Great. Well, maybe you could tell us by way of a little bit of context and scene setting, how you got to be here, and tell us how Portugal has changed as well in that 25 years, so we know who we're dealing with. I'm going to pop this link over on Facebook where there was a little bit of a lively discussion about this as well. And I think your laptop might be wobbling a little bit. We're getting a little bit of noise from one of your devices there, or some sort of not acoustic, not feedback exactly, but maybe something's a bit wobbly there. So maybe be mindful about that. But yeah, what's your connection to Portugal, DNA wise, and what was it like 25 years ago when you first came to live here?
Okay, does it sound better? I think my volume was a little bit higher, probably. Is
It's
it
it's
better?
it's something to do with the wobbliness of the microphone or the laptop, possibly. But don't worry too much about it. If there's nothing obvious, let's just leave it.
Then I'll take my hands away from the desk.
That might be it. Stop fiddling.
So I'm fiddling. Okay, so a little bit of a backstory. I wasn't born in Portugal. I was actually born in Angola, and it was a Portuguese colony. Immigrants. My parents immigrated, and when you talk about values, the same values that Portugal offers today, and it offered 25 years ago, it still offers today, are
Yeah,
the same values that our family looked for when we moved to the United States. And I spent 28 years there, long time, right?
yeah,
Whoops, I'm
yeah.
not gonna wobble the screen.
Stop it.
And the same values, Carl, you still find them here in Portugal. And that's the same ones we found in the United States. And that was, looking for a better life, education, healthcare, right? That's the same values that I said, you know what? I have a better quality of life in Portugal. So
Mhm.
after my parents retired, I started to come here more frequently, bringing my niece when school was over in June. We'd stay here for 2 months during the whole summer before going back to school when she had to go back to school in September. And the important thing is that how I saw that, like, wow. And for me, it was a change, or actually for the positive, seeing that, because in the US, I saw how things there were also progressing out of control that long
25
ago.
years ago. 25 years ago.
25 years ago.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
had stuff going on, wars in Iraq, this, that, putting their stuff. And the US, and I'm not, it was probably the best decision I ever made. And again, I'm a US citizen, happy to be. I
yeah.
think it's the greatest country in the world. But what's going on there? We always say that sometimes when the US sneezes, we catch a cold.
Mhm.
Well, I think the rest of the Europe has been catching. It's on like a fever. It's on fever. It really is on a. It's beyond, like, like, what do you call the flu, right? Now we've got the
Yes.
flu, and somehow or other it's going more west than west. It's the other way around. And I
Yes.
think that's the issue for me, where I saw, just to give you that backstory, was just like, these are the values, these are the things. Portugal, the neighbors dropping off bread at my parents' house. Like, I would stay there at their house and dropping off eggs, or then they're invited to go pick grapes and wines and stuff. Like, community, those are the things. The warmth of the people, it really was. And it still is, Carl. It still is. Deep down, I think people still are. They're good people. Maybe they're frustrated. you know,
And there's a
I'm
resonance
one of
there, isn't
them. I'm
there?
one of them, probably. I'm one of them.
And we've got an American dream, Portuguese dream thing going on here now, haven't we? You've talked about the
Well,
American
Carl,
idea of.
the new American dream is moving to Portugal, right?
Well, it appears to be that way, doesn't it? But what's interesting to me is how it might be in your family. Moving to America was a new start and a chance to begin again in a welcoming, open, entrepreneurial, enterprising culture where people were free to pursue those, life, liberty, and happiness. Is that what's said? And people, some years later, are seeing that possibility. That's certainly been a very clear message that we might do something like that again here in Portugal, and that's really came into its own about 5 years ago and has continued. But what's come in the other direction, I think, are some of the political challenges that we're going to be talking about this evening. So, yes, people are thinking of moving to Portugal, are moving to Portugal to pursue a new life. And what they're meeting with is an unholy political situation, arguably. Not alone in that, because it's that's mirrored again in the US, isn't it? The whole idea of populism and appealing to a certain demographic that is very polarizing. But as I said before, from our conversation we had, this populism you see is not the symptom. It is a symptom of an underlying.
It
I
is
beg
a
your pardon,
symptom. It's not
it
the
is a
disease.
symptom of an underlying disease. So, what is that disease that caused you to move from the United States, and that you see might be the flu that you spoke about that's taking hold in Portugal at the moment?
I think my screen just went black. I
We
don't
can
know.
hear you. We
Oh,
can
you
hear
can
you.
hear me?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you. You got a frozen screen, but we can hear you, which is the main thing.
Okay, let me see. Okay, yeah, but you can hear me. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
you loud and
Well,
clear.
you already know I'm pretty good looking, right? So you
Yeah,
don't need to
absolutely. Yeah, we'll take that for granted.
So yeah, as you rightfully said, populism is a symptom. It's not the disease. The
Yeah.
people call it populism, but I see it as a cry for, again, dignity. Right? When citizens lose trust in leadership, the media, a narrative that institutions, they turn to whoever makes them feel seen or heard. Right? For me, that's not stupidity. That's just human nature. One of the things, and it's just a touch back on a question you had said, why, and not only for me, but why the world still falls in love with Portugal,
Yeah.
and I gotta tell you this, and this is, I helped people from all over the world move here. I don't know,
Mhm.
maybe almost close to 800 families, Carl, and they all say the same thing. Okay, there's something uniquely genuine about Portugal. Okay,
Yes.
well, they do. I mean, you hear it, right? The rhythm of life, belonging, as I mentioned to you before, community, right? The connection to the land and the sea, and that we can't lose. And that is something we have to preserve. I mean, discoveries, and and when you had mentioned, okay, some of the things, but it is there, so it's not a symptom, or it's not a disease. It is a symptom, and it
Yeah.
has to be heard. It has to be heard.
We are struggling a bit with that analogy. I'm still getting a little bit of tapping from your end for some reason. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's a sound issue. I think it's a physical thing of something chafing. Perhaps your laptop microphone or your laptop itself is rubbing against something, um, which will make as few
I don't see
naughty
myself.
comments.
Yeah, the screen went away, or like my image went away for some
I'll tell
reason.
you what I'm going to do. I'm going to refresh us both here and see if that
Okay.
does anything. We'll be right back after we've done this. Okay, so reloading the screen now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've respawned, as it were. We've got Tony's black screen. You might want to do the same. Do a refresh at your end, if you will, Tony.
Okay.
It
I
will
was
see.
trying to see, how do I do refresh? Oh, here we
Anyone
go.
would think this could be some political interference with your message here this evening. So, okay, Portugal, populism and progress. What I'd really like to discuss tonight is this populist politics. What us foreigners, us guests here in the country, should be aware of, and we're getting a unique perspective on that from Tony. Also, want to look at Portuguese values and think about the future as well. The demographics for Portugal, the picture, the forward picture, the case is made that we need immigrants for the population to maintain and to grow, and we are facing an aging population. So something has to be done about that picture of keeping the population growing. And for economic growth and for people to pay the taxes to look after the aging population and the infrastructure of the country. This is a serious geopolitical issue, and especially an issue for Portugal itself, how we might do that. And bear in mind how we might preserve Portuguese values in that process is very much a live conversation. And Tony's back to join us talking about that. I think we can see you again, and we can see you moving, and I imagine we can hear you speaking as well. So, yeah, we just to clarify that the idea that the populism is. That's the noise I'm concerned about. That scraping, whatever that was, Tony. I'm not sure.
That was me just cleaning the microphone.
Well, whatever it is you just did, don't do that anymore, because that was the problem, I think, right there. Okay, good.
Okay. I was cleaning like the dust off I don't know, the
You
laptop.
gave it a good wipe. We got a really good sense of that. Right. Yeah, the populism is the symptom of a disease. Now, some people would say this is a great conversation. I'm glad Tony's brought this up, because it's Chega that are ruining this whole idea of Portuguese values and friendliness, and they're making it a hostile place to be for foreigners. I think you have a slightly different view on that, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was the whole premise of writing about that comment in the Espresso newspapers, that the the voice or the right, these Chega was born out of all the mistakes and all the people that they were not listened to. The Portuguese citizens, okay, the ones with the values, the ones that want to preserve these traditions. You've heard me say many times before, you're not going to change Portugal, but if you're lucky enough, Portugal will change you. And I'm
Mm,
speaking from experience,
yes.
right? I came from the US. Slow down, Yankee. Everything is quick. The bureaucratics, this, the finance office, maybe I don't get ice in the water. Slow down. Things are different here. And what happens is that over long periods of time, I think Shiga was just naturally born out of people unhappy of the things they're going. And you know what? Like they did, I don't know. Things went by, they went by, they went by, they went by. 20 years go down the road, and you have people now that are really, now they have somebody to represent them. And that's the key where for me is that you can't blatantly, disregard them. That's just not, there's 1.5 million Portuguese that voted in Chega. You
Yeah.
can't just discard them. We were talking about this. Well, democracy, it doesn't exist anymore. It ceases to exist when you don't agree with it, right?
Mhm. Yes, that's right. Some people are big fans of democracy until it doesn't go their way, and that would appear to be the case to
Yeah,
some extent with the rise of Chega in Portugal. And I take your point completely. I mean, they can't all be written off as stupid people who've been overwhelmed by their emotions. I mean, I think that does happen in politics, and that happens in every party. But there is a movement and a phenomenon here that bears better scrutiny than just writing them off as being uh,
absolutely.
intellectually lesser.
We keep diagnosing the anger. Everybody talks about the anger, but
Mm.
we never are treating that the disappointment underneath it, Carl.
What is that then? Tell us more about what is that. I mean, we've got the chance to talk about that in an open way, and people do get triggered and angry in these sorts of situations. But let's do our best to stay open minded and open hearted, and give people some credit for reaching to arguably the only tool they felt they had available to them. What was on their minds? What has been bothering them that they would take this step and for their suddenly? I mean, it is quite sudden, isn't it? This 1.5 million Chega voters in the country. What are the conditions for that? What do you think happened?
Well, there's three religions in Portugal, right? The religion,
Yeah,
no, I'm joking. Football, no, or soccer, as many people call it, but it's football. Okay,
yeah,
here it's called football. You play with your foot, and so let's start with religion, for example. Portugal is a Christian country. It
mm,
is Catholic. I mean, it is, most European countries are. And this is not only, we can't say this is only an issue in Portugal. If you look around, this is going on throughout Europe. It's a big issue. And the values, or at least certain things, customs, what people are used to, Portuguese people are very open. I think in many ways that's something have accepted and and I love about Portugal in that way, Carl, is that the fact that people, hey, as long as you're not hurting me,
yeah,
that's okay. But now they're getting hurt because they feel that in one quick just snap of a fingers, things can change, and you don't know that. I mean, look what's happening in other parts of the world, in the United
mhm,
Kingdom, etc. The issue there with the burqa. The burqa is not the issue. That's not the issue there. The issue, with Shiga and stuff, and covering. You have to think about it. Portugal is one of those countries that women are highly respected. right? I
Mm.
mean, I don't know. I mean, and I go to other countries in the Middle East, and I was just in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and it's a total different world, right? Total different. They're
Mm.
more European than probably Asian or anything. And so the values of Christianity, okay, they have to be still intact. And when there's other religions that work or work, they co-live
Mm.
next to one another. Judaism, the mosques, they're peaceful people. They pray, they go, they interact with Christians, everything, and there's something. And I think when there was that one big banner, which was, I think, a little bit too ridiculous for me. I mean, that's
Mm.
even out of taste, even with Andre Ventura, that this is not Bangladesh. But
Yeah.
there's a hidden message behind that. There's a hidden message behind that. Because if you go to downtown Lisbon, and I was just there, I was just, you know what? I was in Caldas da Rainha, my friend, just not too long ago. And I was surprised from like 2 or 3 years ago, like, wow. And I love the cultural ethnicity and having different, like having different, you can't just be, white and whatever, one race or anything. I think what makes us special and beautiful in the world is that colorful ethnicity. Okay,
Mm.
that's the key. And that's something that Portugal, we're a welcoming country.
Yeah.
Carl. I mean, look at us. Except that it just went out of control, and we can't mix the things with the immigration laws and other customs here that we want to protect, which are part of our culture. It's our culture. When
So
you're
if
gonna,
I could sort of analyze that a little bit, then is what you're saying that the very tolerant Portuguese have feel perhaps this somewhat otherwise quiet mass of people that is very tolerant feels pushed too far and is pushing back in what might be called populism and support for Schäger. And I mean, but how do you figure out what is the right balance? Because that's a very difficult thing to do, isn't it? I mean, I think you're on the one hand speaking in praise of diversity and multiculturalism, and that is definitely a Portuguese value, isn't it? But then then there's a sense that there's like no too much of a particular kind of culture, and it's overwhelming the standing culture. I think that's the message, really, isn't it, behind this particular advertising campaign here from Ventura and Chega. But how do you decide what is enough? And this is the problem, isn't it? It's been difficult for those people perhaps to have that discussion without being called racist. That's the go-to, isn't it? And that's where this has become a very divisive and polar issue, is that you can't talk about it at all. But then again, it is a very difficult political, social matter to decide what is enough. How do you legislate or police that? I mean, isn't that just what happens in a culture? Is
okay,
that it changes over time?
okay. Uh, I'm going to give you, well, two thoughts. Okay, one is um, Portuguese values are the antidote. Okay, what I mean by that, what makes Portugal special, what I fell in love with, is its soul, right? The word saudade, right? What saudade? Community. And saudade is one word that means a lot of different things, but saudade, start with there. Community, humility, um, decency. When politics becomes detached from these values, okay, it steps or stops rather serving the people. Okay,
Yeah.
what we need to preserve, because I think that's what you were talking about, and balance and everything. What we need to preserve, okay, we have to protect not just our traditions, right? Because we have to protect them. That's what makes Portugal unique. That's what people fall in love.
Well,
Otherwise,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yes, yeah. There is that. There's a point that was made by the Shager representative who was here in the first discussion. Beyond the algorithm, he was saying maybe it's not that foreigners should fear Shager; it's that Portugal should fear the foreigners who fell in love with the country for a certain set of values and then are in the process of supporting changing those values in their new life here. And it's a fair point, and it's something we should look at and have conversations about. I think, that I found that really interesting. And I'm open to having that sort of self-analysis of like seeing where I am prejudiced, or I've got blind spots in my thinking, or is there something I'm missing? I think this is really important in the political discussion, and
There's
there are a lot of facets to this as well.
there's a lot of noise. Okay, there's a lot of noise. Okay, but again, what needs to be preserved? It's our traditions,
Mm,
um, and our balance, as you rightfully say, our sense of prop. I would say proportion, right? Of conversation, talking,
mm,
those things, traditions, that needs to be preserved. And again, Portugal doesn't need to become louder. It just needs to keep just being itself, but with
yeah,
more honesty. Okay. One of the things that we could talk about the future and things that go on, but the real progress is not going to be choosing left or right. Forget about that. Okay, it's about choosing.
yeah,
The politicians have to listen. Okay, to rebuild that trust, to honor what's best in us, right?
mm,
What in Portugal, because Portugal doesn't need to be reinvented. You know what? Here's another slogan for you. It just needs to be remembered.
mm.
That's it. You can't. You're not.
And you don't think that's happening, do you? With the
No.
politics that you've seen in the 25 years you've been here, I get the sense that you don't think the values are being remembered. Other
Well, they
values,
were forgotten. They were
yes,
forgotten.
okay, yeah,
They were replaced by quotas. Okay, in the last 25 years, or fishing, or quotas with the European Union. Many
mm,
things that we had our identity. We don't. People were paid not to go to work. Do you know that Portugal, when you go out to other countries, Portugal are one of the most hardworking people and respected outside.
yes,
Here, they used to work the farms. They used to work. They go out fishing. People then were paid not to work. That Where did that come from? It wasn't Shiga. They weren't around, right?
can't blame Shaker for that one.
You
That
can't blame them. You can't blame them for that one.
you're in different hot and salty water on that one. I think you're pointing the finger, and this is a very reminiscent of Brexit, and you're pointing the finger at the European Union, I believe.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. It's not a union anymore. When we used to have our own, it's more of like, hey, you know what? Let's just try to collect money from you, Portugal, so we can use it to bankroll our politicians and corrupt and this and that. It's not a union, and that's even when he did the interview, Andre Ventura, and he talked about Salazar. And I'm not, hey, that wasn't my time. Most people, they have different views of that, and you know what, he wasn't perfect, but there's certain values: integrity, corruption. These are the things that today nothing gets done. It hasn't gotten done in 25 years. When I moved here, these things weren't on the table. Lawsuits and people, govern. You know what? With democracy came corruption. It's just normal. We're a country. We're 51 years old, right? 1974, 51 years old. And so with democracy came corruption. And there's been a lot of it, Carl, but not only here in Portugal, throughout the European Union. A lot of money came into Portugal. A lot of, like people. And, that wasn't the case again, 25 years ago. No, people were going to work. It seemed like, here's free money. Here's money. You don't have to work. You don't have to go to the fields. You don't have to go fishing. People lost that. There's a reason you have to get up out of bed every single morning. I think it's called a job. And you go work and you
Well,
try to be good at it, whatever it is that you do. But it's a reason for you to live and let me go do something to produce. So
yes,
Portugal probably started producing less. Again, we're not number one in anything except for probably cork. We are all about quality, not quantity. But the truth of the matter is that all these issues have come together in the last 2 decades that have significantly changed the way the Portuguese people, including myself, feel about the decision where Portuguese are moving here. And again, I don't, I'm from Portuguese ancestors and stuff, and that wasn't my culture. I learned how to Portuguese. I adopted it. Maybe I don't go to church. I'm afraid. I mean, I think the ceiling will come down, but that's just my own thing, So, but but I have my own faith and I'm respected. Nobody cares, But you have to respect those and those that do it and continue. And each single one, any person that comes here, don't try. I mean, you've heard me say this before many times. Don't, and I'll keep repeating it. Don't think that you're going to come and change Portugal. You're not. But if you're lucky enough, Portugal will change you, and that's the key. And I think that's why people decide to move here to get that other life, quality of life, etc. They're kind of leaving something behind. Otherwise, if you're happy where you are, then there's no reason to move. Wouldn't you agree with
True.
me, Carl?
I would
So,
agree with you. We did come here I'll speak for myself and my family. We came here for a better chance, a greater opportunity than the one we could see in front of us in our country of origin for a number of reasons. And I still believe that to be the case. And I think we're in some very challenging global times, and Portugal isn't immune from that. I want to go back a little bit because you said something about with democracy came corruption. Now, presumably, you're not talking about a return to dictatorship. Um, okay, so is it the same for you in the way that some of the people who don't like Shager don't like democracy anymore? Is it similar for you? Is it the wrong kind of democracy where corruption can be so prevalent? What happened? How is this the wrong kind of democracy for you?
you know, it's justice. We feel like, hey, you're getting up every day, you're going to work, you're paying taxes, you're contributing, you're doing, um, in many ways, like it's just frustrating, super frustrating, and people, and I'll be honest with you. You know what? Ventura, Shiga, they don't want to be president. No way. No.
You don't think
That's
so?
nah, nah. Again, Portugal needs to make less noise. Remember, as I said before, right? Just be silent and just do what it does, not make noise. And so they would probably want, and you've heard me say this before many times, and I'll keep saying it. We want Shiga, we need Shiga because they're a voice for the many that were abandoned. Whether they were not, the judicial system failed them, the immigration, this failed them, the healthcare, the healthcare is failing them, and
Okay.
because of the burden on people that are not contributing to society. And again, when we moved to the United States, we had to be sponsored. I'm out favor of immigration. We had to be sponsored by a family member. They were responsible for us uh, until there was a certain period, I don't remember, but for education, for healthcare, for everything, we lived under their house until we picked up our feet and just stuff. But we had to have a sponsor to get there, and somebody responsible. And when you contribute to society, and my parents did, I did, and you pay taxes, and when you do that here, and some people feel, which I'm one of them, and it says, you're paying. We have a high, there's two caveats in Portugal. We're perfect for everything, Carlo. I think it's almost perfect. But for me, it's still perfection. But there's two caveats. It's taxes and bureaucracy. I could deal with the bureaucracy, but when you're in at a high tax bracket, there's a reason for that. That's because you have to get better salaries, but you can't get them because the companies, employers, the tax burden on them. And because then other people there's parallel markets, there's a lot of injustice, and that's what people feel. There's injustice. If you go to downtown Lisbon and even Porto or other bigger cities, like there's a lot of parallel markets. Nobody's paying taxes on that stuff. Nobody's contributing, and some people are receiving subsidies, which is something. What bothers me, Carl, a teacher, a nurse, a police officer, retired, they contributed, a farmer. They're teachers. Our elders are teachers. When they don't have a dignified income of a pension, okay, it's not, I don't know how they live, literally. but there's subsidies of this, subsidies. But when you have people that came, I mean, and this is bluntly, I can't get any more blunt than this. They were illegal immigrants on a boat from, I think, Morocco, right? And they landed in the Algarve. They actually wanted to land in Spain. Did you? If you listen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They didn't have
so the
that.
waters brought them. They said, "Oh, the waters are nicer here. I don't know. Let's just start paddling there. I don't know, Portugal. We'll welcome everybody." And that was the
Yeah.
thing. Right? And you know what? They were put up in the taxpayers, where nothing's for free. They had to eat. Who paid for that? Taxpayers. And most people would argue with me and say, you know what? They should have just, the boat. Hey, put them on the first plane back and charge the government. Let the governments from where they're leaving, let them pay on the bill of that
Okay,
flight.
I get the picture, and this is a widespread. This is not uniquely a Portuguese phenomenon.
No,
And
no.
you're speaking of
It's a
perhaps
European phenomenon.
the injustice people feel when they're not getting well looked after from their current service to society, or thereafter in retirement, and it
Carl,
looks like
remember?
other people are getting benefits that they're not. And this is not an unfamiliar mechanism, but I just want to just check something with you to make sure I've understood it correctly. You're not saying that democracy causes corruption, but the democracy we have is kind of illusory because the corruption continues with a veneer of democracy, and perhaps the people you're speaking of, the silent majority, the ones who were so frustrated, perhaps they voted for a radical populist party, didn't feel represented by the democracy and were fed up with the corruption that continued under that apparent democracy, and they didn't feel represented, and the Portuguese values haven't been expressed or haven't been paramount in the minds of the politicians. Is that an accurate and fair assessment?
Eh, Pretty much. But
Yeah.
democracy, with democracy, I always say that, your freedom begins when mine ends. Correct? Your freedom.
Explain. So tell me more.
Okay, when for you to be democracy is something, and freedom is something just like love. It's something you have. You're a person that's open, you're accepting, etc. But it ends
Oh,
the
it
minute
has to be reciprocal. Is that what you mean?
it has to be. And
Yeah.
democracy for me, and I think that's probably where people say, dictatorship. No, not dictatorship. You don't want that, but you want justice. You want
Okay, I've
justice.
got you. So the misnomer of representative democracy, that's the issue at stake
That's
here,
the issue.
is that
That's
people
the issue.
don't feel represented,
No,
even though there is. Isn't it great? We've got the post
no.
Stadanova era. We have a new democracy, but people, despite that, the kind of the rhetoric, propaganda of that, and the political positioning of that, people haven't felt represented. What sort of dateline or chronology would you put on that, and this sort of upswell of populism? How long has that taken? Would you say when did that stop happening? How far back does this go? Is it the 25 years that you've been here that you've seen this swelling to
Mm,
overflowing, as it were?
no. Again, you have to see the underlying issue, and where the anger started. And I
Mm,
think where people, and remember, again, you can't discard, and that was my whole premise, that blatant, just people disregard for 1.5 million people. These
mhm.
people have a voice now. They didn't have a voice. You know what? We sat. When it was time, when it was with Troika, when the government was bailed out, when this, people just went like lambs, right?
Yes.
People just went. They did it.
Yeah.
COVID. Everybody just took the vaccines. Lambs. Everybody, we're doing it together because it's a country. This, because we have to pull together. We have to make sacrifices, and people made these sacrifices.
Yes.
Now you're asking for other sacrifices, and people
Yes.
had enough. And maybe that's where the name come. Shiga, enough.
Enough. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right?
Fair enough. I get it.
I mean,
I get it. Okay. So
and that's the whole premise, and that's where I think you know. It really is not to be ignored, because you know what, Chiga's not even, when you look at it, they're not even extreme right. Extreme right is another party. I can't remember the name of it. There's actually
Well,
two.
you make a very good segue for me there, because let's look towards the future. Because you could argue that this political argument of the moment is a little bit like a scrap on the Titanic. Portugal has structural, contextual problems like many countries in Europe and other countries around the world, that have a demographic challenge and don't seem to be thinking too much about it. I received a great comment on, I think it was on one of our YouTube videos, and it was from a young. Oh, I need to go back to, I think, to actually no, it's on Facebook. Let me just change that. This is from a young Portuguese person, and I think it does encapsulate to some extent what you're talking about here, Tony. Tell me if it does or not. These are the values. This is the crying shame that perhaps you're talking about here. On the screen now, this is a young person, João Maria, uh, who said, "I'm Portuguese, and although I don't vote for Chega, I don't think that other Europeans living here have anything to worry about at all. We've never had any problems with the British, Germans, or French coming in because they are fellow Europeans with a Christian background. I don't
I
understand
saw
what
that.
Chega."
I saw that, Carl. I read that. I saw that actually.
Yes. Well, let me share a bit more with you because it answers
Okay.
the question about which is truly the far right party. I don't understand why Chega is far right, says João Maria here, is a far right party. It simply isn't. It's a normal populist right wing party, but they are not extremists. The real far right party is called Erguet, meaning rise up.
Yeah.
Which, there you go, that's the one, which fortunately didn't manage to elect a single MP. Those are the real extremists on the Portuguese right. They are openly fascist, and I don't think they should even be allowed to run for the Assembleia da República. Actually, the only extremist parties in the Assembly are left wing. The Communist Party, which openly embraces radical socialist revolutionary methods to take power, and the Left Bloc, whose predecessors were actually far left terrorists in the 70s and 80s. Interesting. The Portuguese people are tired of being treated like cattle. This is what you're talking about. I think you use sheep rather than cattle, by their arrogant, incompetent politicians. What a fabulously articulate young Portuguese person we have here. 30% of young people have been driven out of the country. I'm
Mhm.
29 years old, says Joao, and most of my friends have abandoned their homeland, the land we love and cherish. I actually teared up a bit when I read this first time. Whose soil has been watered with the blood of our ancestors. The only reason I don't vote for Chega is because of their economic plans, which I think are rubbish. However, the migration issue is becoming so bad that I might very well vote for them in the next election. Instead of putting us first, of making us a priority and allowing us to have children in our own land, our spineless government, an abject vassal state of Brussels, decided to open the gates to third world migrants from completely alien and inferior cultures to replace the native people who fled abroad. I don't want that, says Joel, and I don't accept it. I refuse to accept it. One thing is to accept hundreds of thousands of Brazilians who speak the same language, share most of our cultural traits, and are Christians like us. One of them is my girlfriend, whom I wish to marry and have children with. Other completely different thing is to bring in huge numbers of Indians, Pakistanis, and Bangladeshis with whom we have absolutely nothing in common. I don't want it, and the vast majority of Portuguese people don't want it either. We've never asked for this, we've never voted for this, and we don't want it, period. In France, Germany, Ireland, and Britain, there are many Portuguese, Spanish, and Polish immigrants. However, nobody is complaining about that sort of immigration. Actually, I think they are, simply because they are ethnically European with a Christian background and therefore more compatible with the native cultures of those countries. I want Portugal to remain Catholic, Portuguese, and as culturally homogenous as possible. Is that wrong? Says Joao. Um, Possibly too idealistic, I think. Whilst I totally see and respect Joao's opinions there. Is that does that stand any chance of happening, Tony?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes. I think
Mm.
so. Okay. You asked the question before, when did I see the change? Or
Yeah,
actually, let's go back maybe 10 years ago when the movement, it wasn't even a political party, it was a movement, Chega, enough. Okay, people starting to get fed up because of the policies that were adopted by the left. And so people, and they're blatantly, again, they're altruists, they're above, no, they forget about the people, that the working class,
yeah,
the people that are contributing to really paying taxes, and they really care about Portugal. I
yeah,
think they really do. They're the ones, in my opinion, right now, that really want to take Portugal back to where it was probably 10 years ago, because that's when things I started getting out of control, when, like, just the manifestation of interest that you came to Portugal. Hey, let me see if I like it. Let me see if I can find a job. And if I can't, hey, you know what? The government will pick up the tab. Okay,
Mm,
that's what it was.
yes.
That if you ask any person that works, that contributes to society, pays taxes, nobody, like, hey, I'm having a hard time. I've already struggled to pay off the debt of the banks. When I talk
Yes.
about democracy, remember
Yeah.
all these things go back, all these things, corruption, this, that, the bailouts, right? All these things, Carlos. It's not just one thing; it's a lot of things put together.
Mm,
And the movement probably started, and they had one um, diputado, right? They had one assembly person, well, which was Andre Ventura. One. It's the same person now. You're on the left. The left completely ignored that segment of society with the values. They just, I don't know. It was gray, hazy. They completely forgot about what it was Portugal, and they said, you know what? We're going to open our doors to every. Hey, you know what? It's okay. Let's open our doors. We want immigration, but it's got to be controlled, and it wasn't. And these things started to go. And as the time, like when they elected their first deputy, right, Diputado, André Ventura, the next elections, etc., they're the number two party today. 10 or 12 years later, they're the number two party. You
yeah.
can't simply rule out a voice. People are,
No, I take your point completely, and yeah, I do not dismiss or undermine that feeling. And if you can't say you don't like democracy when it doesn't go your way. So yes, that is an outbreak of public opinion, and the beauty of having a conversation of this kind is, we're taking our time, it's open, and I think by what like sort of political definition, if you exclude certain races of people, that is a racist policy. There's no beating about the bush with that. Let's not try and have it both ways. It's pointless having an argument. Is it racist or not? It is racist to rule out people on the basis of their race. That's what racism is. However, there's also the matter of, is that what people want to do in this country? And who am I as a foreigner this is a difficult matter, isn't it? Of liking the country for what it is and presumably the values that made it the way it is, and then stopping liking it because a particular part of it suddenly offends you, i.e., excluding people moving here on the basis of their race. However, if that's what people want in this country, or they want an adjustment and they want an honest discussion without just being plainly dismissed as racist, so they're not allowed to speak anymore. We have to listen to that, don't we? As much as we might not like it,
that
and
was
that seems to me to be the problem at the moment. Is like, the conversation can be dismissed on account of that's racist. We're not
you know,
going to talk about it.
Carl.
I,
When people
I, I,
feel,
I think it
when
would be
people,
better for people to say it actually is racist, and I would like to talk about it a bit more. I just don't want to be batted out of the conversation
no,
on account of someone else's judgment.
when people feel invisible, they'll follow the first person who makes them feel seen.
That's right, exactly. Yes, I mean that's some proper wisdom there, isn't it? When you feel
Show me the
invisible,
light. Show me the light. Show me the light.
yes,
So
yes. So this conversation needs to be had, and if it's only ever had as like, um, you know, imprison that person or shut them down for being what I'm deeming to be racist without any other nuance or discussion, we're in trouble. And I think that's where we are at the moment, frankly. Now, the other angle on this is you can keep arguing about whether it's racist or not, and what sort of people you want in the country. If I may somewhat humbly point out, it's no good only doing that. If the Portuguese people like young João want to not move away and they want to have children, and I mean that's the best way to promote and promulgate, to use the Portuguese presidential process. If you stand for values and you want them to be promoted and you want them to be widespread, you better do that yourself. It's no good talking about this in the abstract, is it? You can't just be angry about who's coming into your country and not take the necessary action yourself to live the values you believe in and have children and educate those children in those values as well. I don't see that happening, Tony. That's a major structural problem.
Carl, why do you think they're changing the citizenship law and they're getting more strict? They're making it 10 years. So
Right.
people, before they become a citizen, they learn what the Portuguese culture, they learn how to speak Portuguese. They learn to integrate enough time because I'm going to tell you something. A lot of the people, or used to, and it still is, they came to Portugal, they got their residency, and they're out of Portugal. Then they're going to another European country to earn more money, whatever, all these
Yes.
things, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so what's the point of having to receive them if they're going to leave? No, you know what? We'll grant you an immigration. I'm all for it as long as it's legal because it becomes unsustainable. And you know what? My battery on my PC. Let me charge my battery on the.
You're playing havoc with my sound quality this evening, but
Oh, sorry, sorry,
we'll
sorry.
let you.
But isn't it better now? Isn't it better?
He's plugging in. It's still a bit noisy, but we can hear what he's saying. And Pedder's saying here. Oh, actually, no. Let's go to the square of the show. Good evening. Good to see you. The absence of populism in the past could now find fertile ground to shape new ideas in the. Well, that's what I'm talking about now. Who's going to do this? You can't just criticize what's going on without actually actively taking part in the new society you want to create, right? If some alien peoples invaded Earth, I can promise you that you wouldn't care what color, language, color, religion, or ethnicity your earthling neighbor was. Yeah, for sure. I don't think that's happening yet. It might be happening tomorrow, apparently, the 30th of October. But it hasn't happened yet. So we have to go with the current status quo. And what I'm proposing is that Portuguese people themselves, if they only continue to talk about Portuguese values in the abstract, and don't actually live those and demonstrate them, promulgate, promote, and amplify them, they will be outnumbered. They won't continue, Tony. I mean, that's a pretty grim prognosis, isn't it? But something has to be done on a practical level to make that happen, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you hit it right on the nose, and those they have, but you got to have a voice, right? These are somebody says this is what we want. Okay, then not just be any slogans. I honestly, if it was up to me, I'd let Shiga run the country and see if they flip or flop.
Well, I fear they
I
don't.
don't know. I'm saying that facetiously in a way, but the reality is, I'm curious. I think João had said, maybe because of their economic policies and stuff. They're again, they were. You don't want them in power. You don't want them to run a government, but you want them there because they're a voice of the people.
Well, that's democracy, isn't
And
it?
that's
What
and
about
that's
this?
what it is. And
Yeah.
and they're there arguing with the prime minister, with the president. They're calling them out for the crap that they're doing,
Yes. Yes.
which
However,
was not possible during Salazar, right? So
no,
there
right,
was not.
absolutely, absolutely. But my point is, calling out only goes so far, doesn't it? Being radical
And
and
making the changes.
oppositional.
Well, now they have X number
Yes,
of deputados. Now
yes.
they're not just a movement.
No, I get it. I
They're not
get
just
it.
a voice. Now they have certain powers. And you know
Yeah,
what? People, the nobility, and I'm talking. If you look at it, like people that they're too good. They're on the left, and they're hey, this is and whether they're saying this and that and everything else. No, they lost those
yeah,
votes. Bloc Esquerda has one deputy.
yeah,
They went
yeah,
from they were like even the Communist Party. I don't know. Maybe the whole left will go PS. Which is one of the most democratic parties, I think. But they lost their focus.
yeah.
They went too far left, and I
Well, this
think
is what I'm talking about, Tony.
they need to come back to the center.
If the far, if what's called the far right and the centre right are arguing on the bridge of the Titanic, they're not looking where the boat is going, and that is the major problem at the moment.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
João Maria may well be right. Chega's economic policies may be rubbish. They might be too busy just criticising the status quo, being anti-establishment, and I understand that. But we need something else as well, don't we? In
Yeah,
the
that's not enough. That's not enough. That's
it's
not
not
enough.
enough, is it? And we need something else. And I don't know where that's going to come from. I'm not hearing that.
No,
You could argue
no.
that the political system is set up
And
just for that push.
you're absolutely right, and that's the key to remember. You don't want them to run the country, but you want them there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think they're a useful check and balance.
Extremely, because they're a voice of the people that have been
Yeah,
forgotten for many
as
years.
are the communists and the what would be called the far left. It's important to have all those voices in a political chamber, such that you can come to decent decisions. However, I just think that the scope of their grasp of reality. I mean, this is a criticism of all politicians, isn't it? It's very poor because what's it going to take to build housing for young people and families in this
Okay.
country and provide opportunities that they want to stay and don't just this is a national habit to leave the country and sometimes never come back. You're not going to promote and preserve your values on that basis, are you? That's a diminishing return, which
Carl,
spells only one thing for this country.
Something happened. And again, I like to remind people because our history is important. Just like we have 500 years of history. Okay.
500 euros of history. That sounds like corruption.
Well, I'm thinking 500,000 euros, golden visa. I don't
Yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Got it.
So our history, and this is not such a long time ago. People have a very short memory, and I think that's what probably I like to remember people sometimes when and I don't have these conversations because it's just pointless, right? People, if they're sometimes not with you and not with people that really you can talk, and I don't have to agree with you, and you don't have to agree with me. 'Cause sometimes if I listen, maybe I just learn something and maybe make change my mind.
Mm.
So that's just the way I see things in life. You don't have to be.
That's one of those Portuguese values we're looking for tonight, isn't it? People still do talk and listen to each other here. They
Yeah.
might not agree, but there's still a table to sit round and discuss
Look,
these things.
look at it when there's a football game, Benfica Sporting or Porto. You know what I mean? Like they're ready to kill each other before,
Yeah,
and then they're hugging each other. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So like, okay, and
yeah.
but I think not too long ago, and maybe people forget, and maybe people that haven't lived here that long enough. But there was a part, and this is democracy at its best. I don't know. I would question it. Okay, the Portuguese people voted PSD. Uh, uh, um, to run the country. Pedro Passos Coelho's won. They won, right? But they couldn't form government
Hmm.
because they didn't have enough deputies and they didn't have a majority. They wanted, more power and they didn't have it.
Yeah,
And so to the left, okay, all of a sudden, hey, let's get all the left. Partido, Bloc Esquerda, the communists and everything. But that's not what the Portuguese people wanted. The Portuguese people voted for PSD. But
yes,
just
yes, yes.
because they couldn't form, do you remember that? I'm not sure if you do, but there was
No, I
something.
get it. Though I get it. How what people wanted, and this is the democracy problem
That's
we're
my
talking
point.
about.
Is that
Yeah,
democracy? Is that
yeah.
democracy? How can we didn't want them, and everything changed. There's a point, in my opinion, when Portugal changed,
Mm.
when it was called the Geringonça.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, all
So,
the and
so
there
that's
and
a key moment, isn't it?
That's a
Where
key moment.
yeah,
That's a key moment.
yes,
That's a key moment. And
yeah,
with Antonio Costa, which I mean, this is someone that just put his, put his tail between his legs, and he fled to the European Union. Which what is he doing there? I don't know. They're parrots. There are a lot of parrots out there. A lot of parrots. Papagayos, papagayos. And I'd rather listen to people that what if they're doing all these policies that took an effect. That wasn't it took away part of the culture, it took away the values, it took away everything because it wasn't done correctly. Wasn't done with time, with planning. Okay,
yes,
planning. All these things didn't go into that decision, and the president of the republic at the time, right? That was his fault. That was
yeah,
his fault. He said, you have to come together, well, because they can't form a government, but they have to. You know what? Like nobody has majority absolute now. They have to negotiate with each other, don't they? Aren't they negotiating? That's democracy.
well, yeah,
Not
yeah,
when you say we voted for these people, and I voted for PSD at the time, and I was like, wait a minute, where did my vote really go? Most
yeah,
people, then you know what? Then there was a period, if you remember, people didn't even go to vote. What's the use? We voted
yeah,
for this party.
and
Then
we
all of
didn't
a
get what
sudden,
we wanted.
I mean, so there's underlying things, and sometimes the left forgets about that
Yes,
because they're too noble or nobility, or they're too good. and then you look at him and you says, well, how many, and like the deputy Mariana Mortagua. I mean, I can't listen to people like that because
I think the words you were looking for were intellectually arrogant. I think
yeah,
you said
blatant,
before.
intellectually,
Yes.
that blatant arrogance, intellectual arrogance.
Yes.
Blatant.
However, Dr. Alim is here, agreeing with some of the earlier sentiments. Not sure exactly which ones. Isn't Chega surviving only on reaction? A silent majority in Portugal doesn't necessarily want it. It may not be that. It may. I mean, if we're talking about 1.5 million people, that's still a lot of other people who might not feel represented, and that's not exactly what they wanted to be said on their behalf. It's a small number of people who are reacting. So that remains the challenge, I think, and we'll wrap it up here. We can always do this again, but wrap it up here in wondering how on earth the majority of people who uphold Portuguese values that we love and that we were attracted by to come here in the first place, how they're represented, and more importantly, perhaps, is how those values can continue to be expressed, and that the kids won't keep leaving, and that Portuguese people will be born into the future in greater numbers. It's not happening in reality. Those values have to be embodied, literally, don't they, in human beings? They can't be concepts and something from the museum. Otherwise,
You got to procreate. Somebody's got to pay the
that's the
taxes.
fun
Somebody's got to
part.
pay for Social
That's
Security.
the fun part. Okay. That's another.
Make
That's
love, not war. Make love, not war.
another
Right?
Portuguese value, making
Here
kids.
I would just say this, and it has been a great talking conversation. I love it because this is again, you know what I think when I wrote that, it was really like, man, and I'm not one to say much about politics. Like I said, the things I don't. There's no, there's you can only if you don't. I can only make a decision or have a power. That's when
Yeah.
I vote. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. Nothing else. Hope that's still democracy functioning. Well, we'll see. But I think it's been great in talking about it because I kind of feel better in that way. And again, these are things you want them around, but you really don't want them running the country. Remember that.
Right.
That's all I got to say.
Yep.
But also, if we can reconnect to the Portugal, right? And I'm talking the Portugal 20, 25 years ago,
Yep.
the Portugal that values conversation over confrontation, okay?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
respect over rhetoric, and
Yeah.
heart over headlines.
Yeah.
No, forget about the billboards.
Well,
Then
what an amazing leader that would be,
yeah.
who came
Then
who
maybe, just maybe,
do you know what?
we'll find our way
Wouldn't that be
forward.
an amazing character to come forward in Portuguese politics, who said, I really get it. I understand what the Portuguese people are about in their DNA. I understand what it is that the foreigners are attracted by, and we must do our best to embody that beyond
Who would be crazy
individual.
enough to do that, Carl? Who would be crazy enough to do that?
I won't be able to.
They wouldn't pay me enough. They wouldn't pay me enough.
You're busy. You're busy, and even if I become a citizen, I can't stand for president. So, but that's
half of the country's budget would have to come to my pocket, and it would. I mean, if I became, that's how I would do it.
You'd want to be paid well, yeah. No,
I
fair
want
enough.
to get paid well.
This is another aspect of this, isn't it? Not paying people well enough to run the country, so
No.
you attract a certain sort of person. Tony, thank you very much for being. Here's to you. I'm on a nice encruzado Dow White, which may well have been one of your many wine recommendations.
White? You're having a white? I'm having actually. It's water here.
I don't believe you. All right.
It is. It is water.
What happened, man? You ill? Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Something's not right, right? Something's not right.
Something's not right. I got
I
the
didn't know
right
it was
video.
allowed. I didn't know it was allowed. I didn't know it was allowed.
Well, we have an open-minded, open-hearted, an open decanter, open bottle conversation on a Wednesday evening, and I thank you, Tony, for being part of this one, and as well as your tap dancing that came with as part of added value this evening. That whatever it was, that tapping sound. My goodness, you've learned some of that northern folk dancing as well.
It's from moving the arms, the excitement here, and
it is. I know. Yeah, you're a dancer. He's a dancer.
And the thing is, I bought this brand new laptop. That's why I'm saying, like, what's wrong with it? Nothing. And so I want to make sure it's always clean, and I'm dusting it always, and my hand, and cleaning it.
Well,
I was probably doing that.
Yeah. Cheers, Tony. All the best to you. Love to you. And the Mino, take care and bye for now. And thanks everybody for watching this evening. If you've got any other suggestions that we might tackle in an open-hearted, open-minded, and open bottle way, do let me know. Take care and bye.